Hi, we're here in Amsterdam at Irdeto's customer conference at the very end, and we're privileged to have with us Graham Kill, who is the CEO of Irdeto. I'm Fred Dawson, editor of Screenplays. And Graham, I'd just like to spend a little time thinking back on what happened today, because you know, it's not often you hear such candor and so many things talked about that are really on the minds of people, but they're not necessarily willing to come right out and say what's really concerning them. But the general tenor here was that there are some major challenges that confront service providers, pay TV providers, that we all are familiar with respect to the changes in the marketplace. And there was also an underlying theme that there's a way to deal with these challenges. It's not just about fear and loathing. What did you see as some of the key things that came out here that you felt need to be conveyed as far as messages out to the marketplace?
Sure. You know, I think first of all, with respect to the forum and its candor, I mean, you've got a rather smaller setting than might be the classic conference circuit setting. You've got a group of people who are common to Irdeto being customers, and you know, they're all sharing similar experiences, and there's much more willingness to share information. So, and you know, we try to set up a networking relationship between everybody, because you know, what one person has experienced, another will do sooner or later. So that's a very powerful forum for starters. You know, what we tried to set out to do is make sure that we have a mixture of the forward-looking things from ourselves as Irdeto, and make sure then that customers share their experience with other customers. And so we had a good blend of people and experiences during the course of the day. You know, I think the biggest message is that a lot of people, of course, have been active with multi-screen. We all know about the tablets, we all know about the phones, we all know about the companion viewings, we know all this stuff. But I think that there is a really dawning realization now that it is absolutely coming to fruition. This is no longer a science project. This is no longer something on the side that is an appendage to your main organization. This is happening now mainstream. The big internet players are absolutely front, left and center coming into this marketplace. They move at internet speed. The broadcast DNA is much more conservative. That challenges how organizations like our customers need to move on this journey. So there's the realization of the speed, the complexity, the need for help through it. That's where Irdeto comes in, of course. And just, you know, I think the challenge that you come away with at the end of a session like this is that people are still searching for what might be the silver bullet of monetization, and exactly what will make the numbers tick. They all know they've got to do it. They're sort of frustrated by the fact that they can't immediately articulate an ROI in terms of the new revenues that might come into their business, but they've got to be there. It's one of those sort of dilemmas.
Exactly, and that's what makes this such a fascinating moment, is the sense of upheaval and transformation that is pervasive, and yet what it all adds up to. And we saw a presentation that sort of pointed out how, you know, who's dominant today may not be dominant tomorrow, using the example of Kodak and
That's right.
and how big they once were, and raising the question of, you know, how do you move ahead now, you know, without being overwhelmed by who seems to be up and who seems to be down? What do you see as the advantages of your customers, the network service providers?
Yeah, so, you know, they've got an absolute unique relationship with consumers. You know, content wants to get to consumers, consumers want to find content. But it really is rather difficult at the moment for consumers to find proper, legitimate ways to do that in the ways that they want, on the screens that they want, at the times that they want. And the opportunity that the platform operators have, who are very, very good at aggregating attractive content, understanding the needs of their consumers, having an ongoing sort of life journey relationship with their consumers, they're uniquely placed to take advantage of this change in the world if they can sort of speed up, compete in internet time with the new entrants that are coming in to try to capture the time and money that consumers want to spend with a particular brand. And if they can do that, then they have the opportunity to build on that customer relationship that they've had. They are a trusted brand. It is a trusted relationship.
Well, that's a good point, because this is their moment where they do have that solid base of customers. For all the talk of cord cutting and all the talk of threat of over the top, we've seen very, very minimal signs of there being a serious threat
Dent.
yet.
Not a big dent yet.
Not a big dent yet. But nonetheless, we see, certainly in the United States, and I see projections here for Europe, that at least on the cable side, there's a diminution in the subscriber counts for whatever reasons. As you look out, certainly there is that threat. So the question is, now that you have this opportunity and you have your collective audience and subscribers there, how do you make that transition to appeal to those that you want to draw in as well as those you want to keep, while not alienating those that just like it the way it always has been? That seems to be part of that struggle. Is how do you make that migration work effectively without just knocking over everything and spending incredible sums of money?
Well, we heard today, of course, that it's about the simplicity. It's about allowing the subscriber to find exactly what they want when they want to watch it. It's about the time to market and the speed of change to keep up with your competitors. We heard all these things. But I think there are robust technological solutions out there. The proprietary versions of the past have gone and finished. And we're at exactly the point now where you've got the opportunity to build on the experience through technology that's packaged in solutions from people like ourselves, which just reduces the risk for you. Which allows you then the opportunity and space to experiment with the business models that might work. And I think it's really the challenge is, how do you maintain the sort of high quality standards that are expected of your brand as a broadcaster, which there is absolutely no tolerance for any imperfections in the service, yet you've got to have that dynamic, flexible, agile sort of throw the mud at the wall, see what sticks approach to compete with the internet and to feed the desire and get the user experience. And user experience came up today as the big thing as well, that consumers want on those new platforms. And you really have to be a Jekyll and Hyde here as an organization to be able to pamper to both parts of the market.
It's interesting. One of the things that came up was the example of how B-Sky B is playing both sides by offering what was referred to as subscription light with their Sky Now terrestrial over-the-top service as a subscription service, but at the same time, of course, wanting to preserve their existing business. So people are experimenting in amazing ways.
And of course, cable companies are sort of playing both sides at the same time, being a internet service provider and also a provider of a classic sort of pay
and they're
TV
having a hard time deciding, which one to put those eggs in,
one's doing
which
pretty
basket
well
to
in
put the
terms
eggs
of value, and then do I cannibalize the other side, or do I try to coexist, or is it Darwinism, survival of the fittest?
Create two divisions and say, go at it, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
So what you've done as irdeto in this multi-screen space is put together what you're referring to as a sort of we'll do it for you kind of model to facilitate that kind of experimentation and growth without necessarily jeopardizing or tearing out what you've already created.
Yeah.
And so what are the linchpins to making that possible as you've articulated them in your platform?
Yeah, look, so we've had experience over a number of years. I mean, we're not new to this game. And so as a consequence, we have taken all those experience and said, okay, what have we done in a bespoke fashion for people before that should be much more standardized and packaged? And what really needs to be available for much higher degrees of customization that an operator wants in order to be able to target to their particular market. And it turns out that there's a 80% that you can standardize, and then you have 20% that's a high degree of customization possible for an operator to pamper to the particular market needs that they have. And that's really on the user experience side, that 20% primarily, and or business model customization. Now, I think that the thing is that if you've got that 80%, you can get the time to market, you can get the cost down, which means that people have the room to then experiment. And in the 80%, we don't do everything ourselves as well. We pick and choose the things that we think that we're strong at, and we have partners that we work with that bring certain things like recommendation engines, etc., that are, their particular knitting.
Right.
And we think that they're the best at it, and they can do a better job than us. And if we put all these things together in an attractive fashion, pre-integrate to help that time to market and get those costs down, then you've got a very attractive platform to offer to people, and it allows the operator then to focus on the job that they do best, which is getting the content and the experience to people that know and trust their brand, and to expand their business going forward.
Now, how does this get implemented from the standpoint of existing infrastructure? In other words, is it possible to do this from a cloud perspective with existing facilities and integrate across where there are points of common contact, or does it have to be more or less facilities based? Is there flexibility in that?
There is flexibility. Ultimately, it really does depend on the territory. I mean, some territories, of course, have great external access to the wider cloud on the planet. Some countries are more insular. Some countries allow the ability to host certain payment systems in the cloud versus on a dedicated server.
Uh-huh.
So it really does depend on the circumstances. But, we have built the platform, and the platform is able to be completely hosted in the cloud. And some people exercise that ability to a large extent, and some people prefer, but some people quite like to see flashing lights on their own equipment, and walk around and touch stuff.
Uh-huh.
And that's their particular preference. So you can have all things in between, from the completely dedicated hosting on your own site, to dedicated hosting with us, to completely cloud-based. So, and everything in between, of course.
Now, frankly, what you're articulating in terms of the general perspective, it seems like so many of your competitors, it's like there's just this flocking to this space of trying to solve these problems. And so, all the service providers out there have to sort through, well, who's doing this best, who's got the right answers. And your core background, of course, is in content protection. And what interests me is the extent to which the needs for this high level of content and the advantage that a service provider would have to deliver content ultimately securely enough to be out ahead of the pack in terms of Windows and all that stuff depends upon being able to work in this new environment with layers of security that are going to deal with the kind of piracy that we're seeing around the world. How much of that is, from your perspective, in terms of what you're offering, is part of this picture of the multi-screen and possibly the differentiations that you bring to the
Look,
market?
I mean, I think our security heritage is a differentiator, clearly. I mean, we feel our multi-screen solution is primarily a multi-screen solution first, and security is in the background. It really should not impact the subscriber or the viewer's experience at all. It should enable their experience and not impede it in any way. So security is less prominent than perhaps our conditional access business. And at this stage in the marketplace, security is not playing the foremost role. It's much more about the user experience. And security is something that is absolutely necessary. It is something that gets you the access to the content. It's something that keeps your operation and your business model secure. But at this stage of the marketplace, it is not as prevalent a requirement. It's somewhat in the background. So the focus is much more on the user experience and the total solution. That said, our experience in conditional access is extremely valuable, because conditional access has traditionally been very much the crossroads of many things in a digital system.
Right.
And as a consequence, we have had to, have so many relationships with people in the ecosystem that I think we have a very unique insight to digital operations in the general sense of the word, and the people that have to be brought to bear, and the business of getting people harnessed and working in one direction to deliver a solution for a customer. And that very much is something that moves across into the multi-screen world that we've been experiencing and working in a solid fashion for some years. I think that's the other thing that differentiates us from our customers, is that we've been doing this. We've got real customers. They're making money out of solutions. This is not slideware. This is not vaporware. And we find a lot of the other competitors in the marketplace, they were here last year at IBC launching the solution, saying rah, rah, rah. A year later, they're coming to us saying, can you help us out with this bit of the solution? Would you mind licensing us this so that we can package to this part of the marketplace? So what they were talking about wasn't actually always there. Now, clearly, there's some very admirable competitors for which we highly respect, but there are a lot of also rans who didn't quite run and didn't get anywhere.
It's interesting because your answer is saying to me that your customers are in some respects assuming that wherever they turn there's going to be a security solution, but that the key differentiators maybe at least on the first pass in selling them on what you're offering is how compellingly you execute on all these other pieces as well.
Well, I think those other pieces are the thing that is the most prevalent at this moment in time. You have to have the security. It's incredibly important for all the reasons that I cited. But as this world and the money gets bigger associated with these type of services, as the stakes get higher, as more competitors come in, and as studios then begin to start having to make those decisions between, do I license that platform versus this one? I think you're going to see these security stakes rise. You're also then going to see that an increasing amount of HD content and higher, even better formats of content, 4K.
Well, that's where it gets really dicey.
Then going on to these
theatrical level quality that can be stolen right off the screen.
Getting onto these multi-screens, and then maybe there's some changes in the windows of content licensing, and more valuable content comes earlier available, and then they're available on multi-screens. Well, then you can see the security stakes very much rising.
Right. That's my take on it, because certainly a differentiator is going to be the quality of the network that you can deliver versus over the top. And when you get to 4K and super high def and you start getting the theatrical experience with early windows in the home, I mean, it's been a struggle so far on getting the licensing together and the pushback from the theaters on these things.
Well, and of course the studios are incredibly careful given past experience.
Yeah.
I mean,
but be all that as it may, the inevitable curve is toward better and better home experience, and with that comes that added layer of security that goes beyond what we're seeing today.
An insatiable appetite for faster, better quality, more prevalent broadband, whether it be in the home setting or in a mobile setting. I mean, this is a sort of, we've got to the point where this is like online oxygen, and we just want to consume more and more of it. And as I said during the day, what was the thing that grew at 8% year on year during the global financial crisis between 2008 and 2012? Well, it was the number of internet users, 902 million added in that period. I mean, that, of all the doom and gloom in the world, that was the thing that continued with an unabated growth.
Yeah, and as we're seeing all of that transpire, again, it comes back to what we said earlier with respect to the challenge to the service providers to move off those legacy systems, to exploit the broadband, and to do it in that managed service way that delivers this super high quality and this experience that goes beyond. So do you feel the pieces are together now that let's say forward-looking savvy service providers can pretty much now make their choices, move ahead with pretty much assurance that they can win this game without having dived in too soon or done the wrong thing? Or?
Look, I think in terms of technology, absolutely. then becomes the business model for their market, the one that's going to work and yield the return.
Right.
There I think the jury's still out. They have to find their way. They have to do a lot of experimentation. They're going to try some things. They're going to throw that mud at the wall. Some's going to drip off and not stick. Yeah. Others going to stick, and you reinforce that. But you have to have this. I think it was great that we heard from Kai at Viaplay saying about think in leaps and iterate in steps.
Yeah.
And it's got to be that, but you've got to do that at internet speed and recognise that what you set out at the outset may well be different in a while's time. But the technology platforms are now stable to be able to do that without that part being your major concern, which is good, because then you can focus on the bit that you really do best,
right,
and which is your core competence of getting the right business model to go to consumers and have a long, valuable relationship where you add value and they pay you for that relationship.
I think that's the difference that we're in right now versus maybe a year ago, is that we now see through something like what you're offering, that sort of technological framework that says you don't know what it's going to be exactly, but you can work from this platform and deal with it.
And you've got the flexibility. And we also have to recognise, I think, in the passage of time, even maybe the last 2 years, that the content is much more at least understood what can be licensed on what platforms and what devices. Mm-hmm. It's less of an uphill battle for the new platform that says, I've got to go and talk to the content owners about this particular device in this particular territory, and it used to be an individual evaluation for every individual new device platform. Well, there are more and more operations out there licensing content on similar devices with similar sort of business rules.
It's amazing how fast that's changed.
That process is at least getting easier. Yeah. Now there are new devices, there are new business models, and you'll have to stick
legacy contracts.
But so you've still got some stickiness in the system, but it's a lot easier.
Yeah, that's what seems to be happening. Well, Graham, be interesting to talk to you next year and see how things have gone over this year. But
thanks very much.
Yeah, appreciate your feedback on what was a remarkable day. Thank
Cheers.
you.